Good evening, everyone. My name is Sam Nasser, and this is the Cleveland C# User Group. A little bit about the group. We meet every month, typically every fourth Wednesday. The meetings are free of charge and open to the public, and we cover a variety of topics related to .NET. You can find all the meeting information posted at meetup.com at the link listed at the bottom of the slide. We always like to give a big thank you to our sponsors, PostSharp and DevExpress, for sponsoring the post-meeting prizes, and we'll be using the eval forms to raffle those off. Also like to thank the .NET Foundation for sponsoring the Meetup website and NIS Technologies for sponsoring the virtual meeting space. In addition, a thank you to Manning.com for a special offer on 35% off a selection of books with a discount code and the link that will be made available in chat a little bit later. Some general information. Please keep in mind that participation is encouraged. And like I always say, the only stupid question is the one not being asked. However, when not speaking, kindly ask you to mute your microphones just to avoid any background noise. And we want to keep it casual but organized, meaning feel free to jump in at any point in time with a question or a comment, but at the same time, we want to give enough time for our presenter to go through the demos and the slides. Lastly, the presentation is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube in just a few short days. So with that, tonight's feature presentation is GitHub Copilot by Abir Majumdar. So Abir works as a senior solutions engineer at GitHub. He has over 20 years of experience in the tech field. He has worked at places such as New Relic and Puppet, and he joins us from Pittsburgh, PA, where he resides with his wife and his two mischievous dogs, as he put it. And so with that, let me turn it over to Abir. And Abir, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Excellent, glad to have you.
Before I get too deep into it, I'm curious who here has seen Copilot, heard about it, played with it. Just post it in the chat. I'm just curious. Awesome. So I'm going to just do a couple of quick slides just to set the table for folks who might not know too much about Copilot. And then we'll do a demo. I have some visual, I have some C# examples, then we can kind of play around with it together. I definitely want to encourage participation. So if you want to, offer suggestions, or when I'm going to start making code changes, feel free to ask a question or ask me to try something. So, what is GitHub Copilot? Well, at the end of the day, it's like an AI pair programmer, right? So it offers, you can give it a prompt and then it will offer suggestions. So if you've ever heard of comment-driven development or prompt engineering, this is probably where, in the context you've heard it in. So essentially, you can write a comment to do something and then press enter, and then Copilot will take that prompt in its context and will be able to give you a suggestion. And it does a pretty good job. I would say it is trained on public code on GitHub and other places on the internet. So that's where it's getting kind of its smarts from, right? So in the nitty-gritty details, we're using OpenAI under the hood, and or the Azure OpenAI service. And Copilot, I'm going to show two things: Copilot completions and Copilot chat. Copilot chat is using GPT-4. Copilot completions, I think, is using 3.5 Turbo right now. Yeah, and so, I'm not going to go over too many of these salesy slides, but I have really, it's such a great product to demo and show people. because people are usually pretty wowed when they can see what you can do with Copilot. And if you're wondering what languages are supported, it really runs the gamut. So I can show some C# today, but Java, Python, essentially what we'll do is if the languages that are most prevalent on GitHub tend to give you the best answers, like let's say JavaScript, right? But you can still use Copilot with some of the lesser known languages. I know we've got a lot of experience here internally with folks who want to convert COBOL code. So yes, you can actually use Copilot on COBOL code, and you can have it convert to a different language. So, and then I like this particular slide because it really kind of highlights what our goal is. We want developers to kind of stay in the flow and focus on what they love doing rather than a lot of the toil associated with development, writing tests and other kind of stuff like that. And we've done a ton of research, and if you go to the GitHub blog, you'll see a bunch of information about research studies about how it's been affecting productivity. So definitely worth giving it a shot. As far as the IDE support, right now we support Visual Studio, Visual Studio Code, NeoVim, the JetBrains IDEs, and I heard Azure Data Studio, I think, is a new one that we just added. And so right now, Copilot comes in 3 different flavors. One is Copilot for individuals. And then, so if you want to use it personally, then you can buy Copilot for individuals. I think it's like $10 a month. And then Copilot for enterprise or Copilot business was kind of our first offering, where we added all these kind of enterprise-y type controls like access controls and guarantees that we're not training our model based on your code. So we have some protections in place there, and there's some indemnity associated with it. Again, just stuff that like typically big corporations want and are looking for. And then we just released Copilot Enterprise. So that's kind of our next generation, and where now we're using things like RAG, if you're familiar with any AI, where we're augmenting the results, right? So that if you ask Copilot a question, by default, like it will, use its knowledge of from the information it's been trained on. But with Copilot Enterprise, you can also kind of supplement what it knows with your own content. So it's closer to, it's not exactly fine-tuning, training on or creating custom models, but it's kind of in between. And there's just some really cool stuff that it can do. I'm just curious here, who is everybody here a Visual Studio 2022 developer? Anyone use Visual Studio Code or any other IDs? Okay, cool. Great. So I'm gonna give the caveat right now that I'm not the greatest C# developer. That's why I'm probably gonna need a little help, or I would love to have some of your kind of suggestions. But I'm gonna switch over here, and you'll see Visual Studio 2022, and I've got Copilot and Copilot Chat installed. So the first question that usually comes up is, how do you install it? So Copilot is, at the end of the day, it's an IDE extension, right? So if you go to extensions, manage extensions, you should search for GitHub Copilot and GitHub Copilot Chat. So these are two separate plugins, but they come essentially bundled. So it's not like you have to pay extra for Copilot Chat. It's just included with Copilot Individuals and Copilot Business, right? So you would just go install these, and then what happens is when you exit the IDE, it will finish the installation process, and then when you relaunch Visual Studio, then it will ask you to log in to GitHub, and so that's how it kind of knows. That's kind of how it does its license check, right? So if you're using it for your personal account, you just use your personal GitHub handle and your password, or if you use it for work, then you would just use your work email, and then SSO is supported and take you to the SSO portal. Any questions so far? I just want to take a quick pause before we get into it. And if you want to ask your question on live, you're welcome to do that. You don't have to use the chat. You can come off mute and ask me here as well.
Just out of curiosity, Copilot was initially developed by OpenAI, correct?
Well, so Copilot was kind of worked on in tandem between OpenAI, Microsoft, and GitHub. So for folks who are on the call, if you're unfamiliar, GitHub was purchased or bought by Microsoft about 3 or 4 years ago at this point. So we are essentially Microsoft employees. But if you just noticed in sharing my screen, I have a Mac. I just use Google Slides, and so it's kind of a unique environment. But yeah, you can see some of the early days of how Copilot came around. I think the first time I ever saw the first demo of Copilot was 2022 or I think 2022, because we just hit a year, right? So and then our engineers have been using it for quite a while. Okay, so let's get into it. So again, I just have a simple API app called the Pizza Store API, and I can do a bunch of stuff with it. So let's go over to the database, right? And so, I mean, the API itself is pretty simple, right? It's got some gets and some puts and posts and a delete, right? Simple kind of CRUD interface, right? But here in the db.cs, this is where where the actual operations happen, right? In this example, I'm just using an in-memory database. It's not connecting to anything. right? But let's start here, right? So I've got, the first thing it does is it lists out all the pizzas that are available for order, right? So cheese, pepperoni, and pineapple extravaganza for those people who love pineapple on pizza. My wife is one of those people. So what I'm going to do though is there's only 3 options. So let's go ahead and try to add more, right? So I'm going to hit comma, I'm going to hit enter. And so right away, you can see what we call this ghost text, right? And it is offering me a suggestion to add a new pizza called Meat Lovers, right? And so it's like, so it just used the context of the file and then just offered this suggestion of the Meat Lovers. I can hit tab and then I want to accept it. So I can hit tab and then now it's included in my code. So let's try it again and see what else we can get. Veggie Delight, perfect. And barbecue chicken. So that was pretty easy, right? So all I did was I just hit enter and then it automatically made a suggestion, right? So let's try something else here. What can we do? Let's see if I get the list of pizzas, right? What if I want to print out like debug output of the pizzas? Let's say I'm doing some debugging, right? So I'm gonna say I'm gonna add a comment here to add or print out all the pizzas. And then here, this is kind of our first example of it asking or giving me a full code block. So it's using for each, right? And it looks pretty good to me. It's using console write line, and it's printing everything out. So this is great. So I'm going to go ahead and hit accept, right? And now it's part of my code. So while we're on this topic, a lot of times folks will wonder, well, okay, so who owns this code? You own this code, or the company that you work for owns this code as soon as you accept a suggestion, right? So as soon as you hit accept, it's your code. We have no ownership of it. Just treat it just like any other code that's been written. Cool. So there's other stuff that we can do with Copilot, right? So this is a pretty basic API, and one of the things that Copilot does is, for context, it will look at the current file and any files that are open for additional information. So like if I'm going here, right, and let's see if, what kind of endpoint I can add. Let's just say, okay, there's pizzas, there's a post, create pizza, update pizza. So let's see what can we do to kind of bulk this up. Okay, so one thing I can do here is let's add a find endpoint, right? So in this case, I want to know what kind of pizzas are available, or I want to know if there's a specific pizza that's available. So let's go ahead and try adding a new endpoint, right? So I'm going to start here by hitting app dot, and we want this to be a get. So let's do map get, and then let's start with pizzas. Let's go with /find, right? And find, and then let's pick. Okay, so it's already going through, and this is one of those things that I love, is that it's already trying to give me suggestions as I'm typing. It will even try to autocomplete your comments if you let it, right? So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and accept this, but what I'm going to do instead here is I'm passing in the string, and I'm going to go and change this to find pizza, and then put in name. Right, so here it's, I just created this new endpoint. You can see here it is, it's underlined because it doesn't exist, right? So let's go and add it over here. So what I'm going to do is, there's the remove pizza. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. I love this. So right away, it is offering me a potential endpoint here for find pizza. So you could tell that I had created this new request in program, and now it's offering it to me. So I'll go ahead and hit accept, right? And I think this is right. I'm not too familiar with this particular syntax, but it looks pretty good, right? So what I want to do next, right, is I could even do something like, is the pizza, pepperoni, right? So what if I want to do in the find, let's say I want to write a regular expression to see if the name contains pepperoni, right? So I personally am really bad at regular expressions, right? So this is something that really helps me out a lot. So I'm going to write a new comment, right, and says, check if name contains pepperoni, right? Okay, so this is interesting, right? So it's offering me a suggestion. It's using name.contains pepperoni, which is fine, right? I'm okay with that. But let's see what Copilot can do is when it offers you a suggestion, it can actually come up with 10 different suggestions. And it's really just showing you the first one. So if I want to go through and see the other suggestions, what I can do is I can click on my little Copilot guy here, and then I can say Open Copilot. So what you'll see here is those 10 different suggestions, right? It is giving me different options. It's giving me different console lines, right, that are appropriate, right? But so I can pick any one of these, right? And I can hit accept. So one of the things that you'll kind of start doing and start getting better at once you start using Copilot is what is called the prompt engineering. You got or prompt crafting. So here's an example. So right here, I wanted to use a regular expression, right? But I didn't really specify it in my prompt. So let's try that. Let's say, change this prompt to check if name contains pepperoni using regular expressions. And there you go. So this is not the greatest regex, because it's really just doing a match on pepperoni. But I think you get the idea. In a lot of demos that I do, I'll use do phone number validation or email validation, and it will come up with it'll show me the regex for that pattern, which is, again, super handy. It really helps me with it just saves me a lot of time. I don't have to think about spend like a day trying to figure out how to write the perfect regular expression. Okay, any questions so far? Anything you want me to try or kind of play around with? Yeah, I'm just curious about what y'all think so far.
I have another question for you.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned that whenever you ask for a suggestion, it actually gives you the first of many suggestions. How can you scroll through the various suggestions?
So on Visual Studio 2022, I believe it is Alt and then period. Let me see. Let me try this again. So let's just say validate. Okay, great. So hit enter. So no, it did not offer me a suggestion. Let's try that again. This here. Check if pizza exists, right? Let's go ahead and put comments in front of that. And then we'll hit enter. So here you'll see it's offering me a suggestion. And then right here it says Alt plus enter will give me the next suggestion. So I can just keep hitting Alt period, and then it should cycle through all the different suggestions. Oh, I'm using the wrong one. So there you go. See, these are all the different suggestions, and that's how you cycle through. I think, and then so it's either back or forth. So it's either Alt period or Alt comma, right? Yeah. That answer your question, Sam?
Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I see a comment from Olivia about the multiple suggestions. It's one of my favorite things to demo, because a lot of people don't know about that completions panel with the different suggestions. So it comes in really handy, especially because sometimes you might get frustrated because Copilot's not giving the exact answer you're looking for. But if you look at those 10 different suggestions, you might get something that's closer to what you want. All right, so let's kind of shift gears for a sec. And what I've shown you so far is what we call Copilot completions or autocomplete, right? Where I'm in the flow, I'm writing code, and I need to do something new, or I need to update something, and it's helping me at the cursor, right? It's helping me right where I'm at, which is great, especially when you're creating new code. But a lot of times you want to do some refactoring. You want to be able to make kind of global changes. And that's where I feel like Copilot Chat really shines. And so now, I'm going to talk about Copilot Chat and how it's different. So Copilot Chat is a ChatGPT-like interface for Copilot. So you can ask your questions in plain text, and it will help answer it, right? So that's what I've got open over here on the right here. So you can say, let's build together. And so I can start asking it questions. So one of my favorite things about Copilot Chat is the explain function. So if let's say you just got hired and you've got you get a new code base and you're not exactly sure what's going on, or you might, or if you're a senior developer and you get some old code base that you haven't seen in a long time, where Copilot Chat can help explain that code to you. So here I've actually highlighted my code, right? And then I can write at workspace, and then I can put /explain. I believe that's syntax. At workspace is just a way to ask, to look at multiple files for the context. But here you go. So right away, I used the /explain, and it gave me a ton of good information about what was going on with this code, right? So it's telling me even by line by line or method by method what's going on, and it even shows the find pizza method that I just created, right? Oh, this is hilarious. So it even offered me a optimization right here. One thing to note is that update pizza and remove pizza are not very efficient because they create a new list every time. If the list of pizzas is large, this could lead to performance issues. And so you can see it's already offering me some follow-up questions. So sure, how do I improve the performance, right? So check this out. So what it's done here is it's actually given me, it's kind of rewritten the update and remove pizza lines, right? It's checking for user value, it's checking to see if it's null, right? And it's kind of giving me an explanation of what are the changes and how it's going to affect performance. So it's super handy. I didn't have to switch over to Stack Overflow or Google or ask someone. I was able to get the answer right here, which is great. So this comes in really handy. I can do something like, let's try a different function. I'm going to go back to the program. Now let's go back to the DB, and I'm going to highlight this code again. And this time, I'm just going to ask it a general question. Add more error handling to the code. So again, it's just a generic query, and now it's has given me a lot more code, and you can see from the code it's suggesting, it's actually added a bunch of try-catch blocks, right? So that's a simple way of kind of making your code a little more hardened, right? Which is pretty nice. If I go over here, I guess you're not, maybe this isn't only in Visual Studio, but code, but in Visual Studio Code, there's like a button here that will select the code or insert it into place. So still very, very nice. I can grab this and paste it in. Let's see, what else could I ask it? Let's have it write some documentation. So I'm going to use something a little different here, where I'm going to use what's called the inline chat. So what you've seen here is kind of the sidebar chat, but I can also do what's called inline chat. So I'm going to go and highlight this create pizza method, and then I'm going to hit Alt and then less than. Oh, did I think I, let's try this again. No, I'm getting the keystroke wrong, so I apologize. So what I'll try to do is I'll just go ahead and kick it off here and say trigger inline suggestion. Oh, I forgot the control. Okay, so what should happen, let's try this again. Control Alt. All right, let's try a different way of handling this. Okay, so I can also use the right-click menu and say Ask Copilot. Again, now I can ask it a question, but it's going to give me just the scope of this create method. And so here I can use another one of these slash commands, right, to write documentation. So this is really nice. So again, slash commands, you've heard me say that a bunch. They're really just shortcuts. They're just easy ways to like get to, some options, right? So I'm going to go ahead and write doc here, and I'm going to hit submit. And now, if everything goes right, it should generate documentation for me. Okay, so this is interesting. So I think I had unhighlighted the prompt when I brought up the Copilot chat inline. So instead of just giving me the docs for create pizza, it's actually generated docs for all of the methods, right? And this is something I really love about using that inline, is it kind of gives me this before and after this kind of a diff view. And if I like it, I can just hit accept. And then look, see, it just went in and made changes all over this file. And this is, again, it's great because then I don't have to worry about like doing the same thing over and over and over, right? And then you might have seen it in the in the menu earlier, but what if I want to write a test? So let's try that. So again, I'm going to go into Ask Copilot, and then I'll ask it, all right, /tests, and then hit enter. Let's see what it does. Okay, well, check that out. It actually created a whole new class where it's running these tests. So again, that's awesome. It just generated all of those test cases just for me, right? If I hit accept, and then I can hit save, and now this is part of my code. So now I can run, let me plop that in here, and I'll hit save, and now it's part of my code, right? So this is another thing that I know can cause a lot of toil, is the writing unit tests, and this is something that I think can really help developers out. So I definitely recommend that you try those slash test. Okay, I feel like just showed some serious gold here, so I'm hoping we've got some feedback. People got some questions, or if they want to send me a prompt and you want me to ask Copilot something, feel free to come off mute or post it in the chat. One thing I like to also point out. Oh yeah, come on.
What if, how would you go about, like, if you wanted to add, say, like wings or drinks or something like that to kind of extend what your app does?
Mm-hmm. Let's say, okay, so let's try this. So what I can do, let's just ask Copilot, what if I want to add wings to the pizza store menu? Let's see what it comes back with. Okay, so yeah, here it's creating a new class called wings, and it's putting in all these default like getters and setters and all the CRUD methods. So it was just able to do that in one fell swoop. I have this button here to insert into a new file. Let's do that, and then I can just hit save, and let's go in here, swear in B, and then I'll put wing.cs. So that's pretty cool. Is that kind of what you were looking for?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Let's say if I go back, now that I've got this file open, I'm going to go back here and let's try adding a comment. Look, it knows somehow that I wanted to add wing endpoints. So I'm going to go ahead and hit step and then hit enter. Okay, and now it's offering me the suggestions line by line. That is pretty cool. Pretty cool. Oh, so the other thing I wanted to mention here is Copilot also, you can ask it questions that have nothing to do with the project that you're in. So if you've got general programming questions, you can ask them in Copilot chat. Like typically I will ask it to, how do I write a linked list in Python? And there you go. There's my Python code. I could even do the same, for this program.cs, right? So let's try it. Let's just try this. Again, I'm going to highlight the code again. And then I will say convert this code to Python. Turner mentioned in the chat, one thing he's noticed is that after doing a bunch of line-by-line suggestions, it will generate a large suggestion. So yeah, that definitely can happen. I don't think there's really any control over that. This is, you can use Copilot on 2 separate days, and you might get 2 different suggestions based, even with the same prompt. But check this out. So it says, okay, the code you provided, it knows it's an ASP.NET Core app, right? And so it knows that, okay, well, Python has a similar framework called Flask, and here's that code using that Flask framework, which is great. I want to call out that today, in prepping for this demo, I've never, this is the first time I've used this code, and so everything you're seeing here is just like, is just brand new. A lot of this stuff isn't even rehearsed. I just knew a project and I knew that Copilot can do all these things. Okay, so Sam's good question. What would cause it different suggestions on different days? And this is just function of LLMs and Gen AI, is that it's I forget the words, but it's probabilistic, not deterministic. I think that those are the words. So, and that's kind of how these things operate. So if you ask the different days, it might give you different answers. It could also, if you've added more code and changed things and you ask that question, you might get a different answer. So I don't have a great explanation for that. I will tell you that if you check our website, we've got a ton of really great content about GitHub, about Copilot and LLMs. There's a whole, there's a bunch of really great tips and tricks. I'm trying to get this window over so you can see. All right, bear with me for a second. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Okay, here we go. So the Copilot blog, or the GitHub blog, is a really great place for different things. So you can see here's an article written by the engineering team about how to use Copilot in your IDE. There's a great article in here about prompt crafting that has a lot of great suggestions on how to, so prompts, tips, and use cases. Yes, there's a ton of different resources here. Oh, and here's, I was talking about the LLMs, and if you want to get the answer to the questions, this kind of talks about that deterministic versus probabilistic question. I think also one of the things you'll notice, right, is how when you ask Copilot Chat a question, it is writing it out line by line. And the reason why is because that's how these LLMs work, is that it literally is generating a line, the next line and the next line, right? So that's just how it works. Okay, so Turner is asking another question here. Is there a way to view your previous prompts and suggestions that it offered, like a history? There is, I believe you can, the prompts and suggestions, your kind of history here, will be stored locally, right? So if I quit my IDE and start it up again, I think you should be able to see your kind of your history, but we're not doing any like server-side storing of that. So this is one really important point when it comes to privacy and security, is that we don't store your prompts or suggestions. When we send the prompt to GitHub, we generate the suggestion and then we immediately delete both. So again, we're just for privacy's sake. Now let's try it. Okay. And let's restart it. Okay, so this time it doesn't look like it saved it, which is interesting. So this might be kind of a new change, or it could be a quirk of Visual Studio, because I've seen this in Visual Studio Code. Yeah. Okay. Well, any other questions? That was pretty much the demo that I wanted to show. There's some additional kind of cool things that you can do with Copilot. One of my favorite little tips, I'm going to show Visual Studio Code for a second. Let me open up the project. And I don't know if folks here on this call, if you've got ops folks on the call, you can leverage Copilot with things like Terraform or Ansible. I've definitely used. I have a demo where I feel like it's the holy grail of Ansible. I ask it to convert a Bash script into Terraform code, and it's able to do it. Or you could even do things like ask it to convert Terraform AWS Terraform code that's generating AWS resources to Azure resources instead. That's pretty cool. Cool. Let me show this. One thing I like also with Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code is, if you're using the built-in source control, right? I'm just having trouble giving an example. But one of the things that it will do is when you're writing a commit message, though, you'll see like a little magic icon, and that if you press the button, it will actually generate the code, the commit message for you, which is really handy because it's looking through the changes in the diffs, and then it will generate a nice commit message for you, which has been really helpful for me. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And
actually, I got another question for you.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, a couple more questions if no one else has any questions for you. But I'm going to go out on a limb and ask if there is a conflict during check-in. Can it help you resolve that?
It probably could. One thing I tend to do a lot in Visual Studio or in Copilot Chat is I'll just copy an error message and I'll paste it into Copilot, and then just ask it, well, what does this mean, or how do I fix this, right? That comes in really handy. So before this call, I spun up a VM in Azure, the Windows VM for this demo, and so I was using Copilot to create a bicep file so I can have something repeatable. And then when I would try to spin it up, it would give me like an error message, and I would just take that error message and just throw it into Copilot Chat and say, "What does this mean?" And it would be able to help me, which is pretty nice. I think in a lot of, I know I've seen this in Visual Studio Code, but you can, there's a lot of places where you right-click or you hit the context menu, and there will be an option to fix this or explain this. And that comes in really handy too. So you could even, if you're seeing error output in your terminal, you can just right click on it and say explain this, and it'll help you explain it.
So going off of that, I saw where you had an explain question, and it explained what the code does. But let's say that I'm new to C# and I don't know what a lambda expression is, and all I see is just an equal greater than sign. Can I ask it what that means and how I can use it?
Yeah, absolutely. I would, I'd handle it in a couple of different ways. I could ask it, what does the syntax mean, or what's happening on this line of code. I could just ask it, what does this symbol mean in C#, and it should be able to give you an answer.
Okay, that's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I always just say, if you've got questions, just try it, play around with it. You'd be surprised about how often it can be helpful, and the answers it gives you are good ones.
Right. What's the worst that could happen, right?
Right.
Okay. I'll take a back seat for a moment. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Going once, twice. All right. So if I may, I'll go ahead and share my screen, Abir.
Go for it. Do I need to do something?
No, you're good.
Okay.
It'll just take me a second.
Thanks, Janice and Olivia.
There we go.
I found it useful.
So before folks leave for the evening, there's just a couple things that I wanted to mention. So if you look into the chat window, I posted a couple links, and we'll go through those at this time. So first and foremost, thanks again to Abir for a great presentation. I think he answered a lot of questions that we all had, so it was very informative. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube, and the link for that is listed there. and also available in the chat window. If you would please subscribe, and you'll get upload notifications when the video is ready. In addition, tech events that we'll cover in just a second are also posted on my blog, and you can subscribe to that as well and be able to get updates. Last but certainly not least, the feedback eval. There's a link for that in chat. If you would please take a moment to fill that out, and we can provide Abir with some constructive criticism. Also, if you joined us after the start of the meeting, there's a 35% off a selection of books from Manning.com as a special offer. Both the link and the discount code are available in chat, so you can take advantage of that. And with regards to regional events, so April 2nd is the Ohio North Database Training Group, and that group revolves around SQL Server topics, and they're a hybrid where they meet in person as well as online, and so you can register for that. On April 4th is the Twin Cities.NET user group, obviously out of the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul in Minnesota, but they are online, and so you can access them from anywhere, as well as the Azure Cleveland user group that will be on April 10th. That is also a virtual group. And on April 18th is another virtual group, the Greater Lansing user group for .NET users. And April 24th is the Cleveland C# user group, aka this group. As far as regional events, on May 3rd is Stir Trek, that's happening in Columbus, Ohio. Since the early bird tickets have gone away, we're now into the late ticket sale prices, which is $200 per ticket, but they are still available. So you can check them out at stirtrek.com. And like I said, all these links are posted on my blog, which the link is provided in the chat. And like I mentioned at the start,
I'm going to post my my email address in the chat. So if you or your company is interested, feel free to ask me, and I'll should be able to route it to the right person.
Excellent, thank you. So Bikram had a question, is this in person in Cleveland? The Cleveland user group, the C# user group, obviously this group, no, we're meeting virtually. Okay, very good. So as I mentioned at the start of the meeting, job openings. Always like to ask who's hiring and who's looking for work. So if you have a job opening at your place of employment and you'd like to share it with others, please do so. Likewise, if you're looking for work or looking to change positions, please make yourself known at this time, either in chat or verbally. Anybody? Everyone is gainfully and happily employed? Good to hear. So Bikram is looking for work. Are you mid, senior, junior? Where are you at, Bikram, in expertise level? Junior. Okay, very good. So if we have any junior positions, please help Bikram out. In addition, you can find jobs posted at techsystems.com/IT-jobs. And likewise, I get job openings every so often, and I will share them with a group. You can also reach out to me directly. My email, snasser@nistechnologies.com. You can also find me on Twitter or X at Sam Nasser. The link to my blog once again. And if we're not connected on LinkedIn, I invite you to do so. And so with that, a big thank you to Abir. Thank you to all for joining us, and look forward to seeing you all next month. Good night, everyone.